Welcome back to Scarfy Spurs Talk. Yep, that's right. I got it right. Sorry, Harry, if I've butchered it. But anyway, I'm your host, Dan. Welcome back to a great channel. I'm joined by three very good guests, and we're going to talk about game week 3 of the Premier League. Now, obviously, before we get into everything and before we introduce the guests today, make sure you leave a like on the video. Harry works really hard on his channel. Obviously, gets organised and gets us guests on so we can all talk about our football teams. It's a great neutral standpoint. We're not here to throw abuse at anyone. We're just here to have a great show together. So first of all, I'm joined up by Luke, Tony and Billy. Guys, just want to introduce yourselves. Whoever wants to go first.
Shall I go first then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Luke. I'm from Turn Talks Football. I have my own channel, which I'm basically just growing, basically doing previews, reviews, and basically anything in between. I did quite a lot of deadline day coverage. I'm a Forest fan, if you can't already guess from the massive stadium behind me. And yeah, that's basically just a bit about me.
Hi, I'm Billy. I'm a Spurs fan, often seen on Harry's channel, and delighted to be joining you after our first loss of the season, of course.
Yeah, I'm Tony, obviously a Newcastle fan, as you can tell. Have my own channel, which is obviously on the screen behind me. And I do lots of content, Newcastle content, pre-match shows, all that sort of thing. England content, even Newcastle women's as well. So, and I'll be at their first game of the season down in London on Sunday as well. So look for vlogs for that one as well. And I'll be doing a championship preview as well this week.
Awesome. And obviously I'm your host, Dan. Obviously I hope to be a host. Obviously it's a bit of a trial for me, so hopefully I can host a bit more and Harry likes the performance. But anyway, let's get right into all the fixtures. Now, first of all, we'll talk about one that made quite a lot of headlines, and that's obviously the Arsenal and Brighton one. Now, obviously, Billy, I'm going to assume you have a bit of agenda towards Arsenal, but we'll just obviously try and keep it as neutral as possible. But Arsenal, I thought that from the highlights that I watched, Arsenal didn't really look, but it was quite, I don't know how to describe it. They weren't battering Brighton. They were in control, but obviously until that red card, that changed everything. And a lot of Arsenal fans, you can see why they're upset. But Declan Rice, in my opinion, knows full well what he's doing. He kicks that ball deliberately on purpose, and obviously already on a booking, he's taking the risk. And obviously, unfortunately, he gets caught, and it doesn't get paid off almost. So, Billy, I'll come to you first. And what were your initial thoughts on the Arsenal red card?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because I think everyone thought he was going to put the Brighton player because he got cleaned out when he was taking a free kick, even though he didn't technically do anything wrong because Rice was in the way. But just you very rarely see referees take that kind of bold statement and a decision like that. You never really see them make a move that sort of. I don't want to say brave because brave is not the right word, but that out there because he did get minimal contact on the ball, but at the same time he when he was trying to prevent the Brighton player from taking it, but at the same time he was obviously purposely walking in the path of the free kick. I know the difficulty is that the ball was apparently moving at the time that the free kick was being taken. Then obviously it shouldn't really count for that reason, but just why do it in the first place? And I think another thing that people are leaving out as well, I thought that Declan Rice's first yellow card was a horrific challenge as well. Like he could have, sometimes you can see red for that challenge. So I think overall he probably deserved the red card. And then I think Brighton rightly came right back into the game once they were down to 10 men. And Brighton have just been excellent this season. I think they're one of the strongest teams. What are they, 7 points in now? And they won the cup as well. So they look like a really strong team, I think, this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, mate. Tony or Luke, do you have anything to add on the game?
I mean, look, it doesn't matter if you kick a ball away, you're always going to get a yellow card. And if you're already on a yellow card, why risk getting yourself sent off? Anthony Gordon did this for us last season, but he did that to avoid 10 yellow cards, which was quite clever from Anthony Gordon, really. So, but Declan Rice isn't in that territory where he needs to get out of there getting 10 yellow cards. But look, the end of the day, the rules are there. If you're going to kick the ball out of play, then you're going to get, then you're going to risk a yellow card. Okay, people can say, yes, it's a bit harsh, a bit soft. As a referee, right? I'm not so sure. Could he have been a bit more, lenient and said, look, come on, you're on a yellow card. Do you want another yellow card just to kick the ball out? But I think common sense could have prevailed, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the referees made that decision that no, he's going to give him the second yellow and send him off. So, I'm a bit on the fence with this one, if I'm honest.
That's fair enough. Obviously, the massive talking point as well was when Pedro booted it towards the end of the game, and it was like, because obviously Declan Rice, he nudges it with his foot, and it moves like not even 5 yards, and then obviously Pedro towards the end of the game just absolutely volleys it to like 40 yards away into the crowd, like obviously to waste time, and he didn't get booked or sent off, whichever one it was. So, obviously Arsenal fans were kicking up a fuss about this, but I wanted to quickly mention something. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I feel like if this was Manchester City, obviously I hate Man City, but obviously the difference in mentality is that I think that even if Man City got a red card, like Arsenal's perspective, they would have tried and finished the game off as quickly as possible and gone 2 or 3-0 up, where Arsenal didn't really commit too far forward, and then eventually they got punished by Brighton. What do you think on that? Do you think Arsenal have that, even though they've had a setback, do you think they have that winning mentality to show that they can, challenge for the title? Obviously, they are a very good and well-drilled football team. But, Declan Rice is now suspended. Is it for the North London derby against Shrewsbury? So, obviously, that could be another loss in points for Arsenal, because one thing I know about Spurs is that, yes, they struggle to keep clean sheets, but they know how to attack. So, it could be an interesting game. And obviously, without a player like Declan Rice, Arsenal could definitely struggle. But obviously, going back to the City comment, do you feel like that if this was City in the situation, do you feel like they would have tried and closed the game down a lot sooner? Or do you think they would have struggled as well? Because obviously, Brighton, let's not put disrespect on their name, they are a very decent football team.
I think you're right, to be honest. I think Man City would have tried and won the game more. But I think the thing is, when you're up against Man City, you have to have a near perfect season. Like Arsenal last season, I think they won 12 at the last 13 games. They still didn't win the league. And they've already slipped up I know it sounds ridiculous to be talking about it 3 games into the season, but that's the kind of margins which they could win and lose a title when you're playing against Pep Guardiola's Man City. Like, you can afford like 1 or 2 slip-ups in the entire season, and they've already had one 3 weeks in. So I think it is that fine margins which you're going to have to overcome if you're ever going to beat Pep's Man City. Because, to be honest, this season already, like, Haaland's looking absolutely ridiculous. And he didn't have an international tournament over summer, so he looks, fitter than ever. He's already scored a ridiculous amount of goals in 3 games in. And not being able to beat Brighton at home is probably going to be one of those results they look back on, where if Man City are, 2-3, last season they were 1 point, there was 1 result in it, wasn't it, at the end of the season, obviously, because Man City beat us away, which ended up winning them the league. But if it comes down to like 2 points, which very likely could do, then not being able to convert against Brighton at home is probably one they're going to look at as one which they should have won, and going looking back on it. So yeah, I do think you're right. It is that kind of mentality that you have to just be absolutely ruthless if you've got any chance of getting anywhere near this absolutely ridiculous Man City team.
Yeah, I agree. Luke or Tony, do you have anything to add on the situation for City? Do you feel like that Arsenal still lack that, that winning mentality? Because yes, they are yet to win anything properly under Arteta. I know they won like domestic trophies before, is it the Community Shield and the FA Cup when Arteta first started, but then since then they've hardly actually won anything. Like, do you feel like that they do lack that mentality?
I think without kind of straying a little bit kind of off your question, I think another point to raise is, going back to the red card for Rice, would that always happen with every referee? Because we all know the consistency within the Premier League isn't there. So 1 week you can probably get away with just doing a slight nudge off the field and it go unnoticed, whereas the next week it gets punished. So that's something I think that also needs to be considered, that I think Declan Rice fell at the wrong time with the wrong referee. But
Yeah.
on your but on your actual question, I think it's very hard when you go down to 10 men to then, especially when it's one of your central midfielders, to then really adjust, because then a player that's probably not naturally a defensive midfielder then got to come inside to cover, and it creates more spaces. And with Brighton's electric start to the season so far, I can see why they went and conceded that goal. But again, with the Pedro thing, if he wasn't booked for kicking that ball away, then again, it's the consistency argument in the same game, isn't it?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, pal. And obviously, this is where it's saying, obviously, it depends on the referee. It depends on the situation, because realistically, if Declan Rice wasn't booked, then and he did that nudging with his foot away or something like that, I doubt that like he would have got a yellow card. But I feel like because he's already on a yellow card, it's kind of pushing it. You might I don't know. Obviously, the inconsistency, and it's quite new into the league as well. Obviously, I've definitely noticed in United's first few games that certain challenges not being given that would have been given last season. So it's clearly they've kind of changed to the rules to a certain extent. Obviously, it seems like the referee or the on-field referee has a lot more of their say now, and VAR only gets involved when indeed necessary. So we'll have to see how it actually goes. Now, we spoke about Arsenal long enough. Obviously, we've got quite a few teams to go through. And obviously, he's in the comments, this Nick, and he's obviously got a Southampton badge. So I'm going to assume he's a Southampton fan. I mean, Brentford have had a very strong start to the season. Obviously, they've got 2 wins, 1 loss. And Southampton, I predicted to be a yo-yo team, go up and come straight back down. I don't think they've got what it takes to survive relegation. They are a decent team. Don't get me wrong. Like, no disrespect, but at the end of the day, I don't think Southampton have got a lot to really compete, because obviously we're going to talk about Everton. Obviously, after they bottled it against Bournemouth, but I just look at these relegation teams and. Or should I say the newly promoted teams, and like you look at it and like they have to be getting 30 to 35 points to survive relegation. Like, I really don't see the likes of all 3 teams that have just recently come up getting 30 points or more to stay in the Premier League. So I feel like that Southampton are going down. I feel like Ipswich are going down, and Leicester, I feel like may be able to survive, because they should never have been relegated in that season. They actually went down, in my opinion. So we'll have to see how it goes. But Southampton, for me, obviously, I expect him where to be, and we'll have to see. But Nick here has turned around and said that promoted teams are always up against it to stay up. But last season was the first time since 97-98 that all 3 went back down. So we'll have to see. It does see. I swear that's wrong. I mean, I swear that we've got quite a few teams that have come up and come straight back down, but I might be wrong. But guys, did you watch this game, or was it just one of them ones where you watched it on the Sky Sports highlights?
I haven't actually seen the game, but I think from playing Southampton in the league the previous week, what's noticeable is if you press Southampton, you can get at them, and it's a bit like the trend. When we came up, we had to adapt to kind of change the style of play slightly and become a little bit more compact. We couldn't always just go for it straight away, because it left us so wide open at the back. The same things happened at Burnley with Vincent Kompany. They had that style. He believed in that style. It just wasn't working, but he was so stubborn that he wouldn't change. Is the same thing going to happen at Southampton? Is their playing style going to end up costing them in the long run because they pass it around, and pass it to death. And if you press them at it, they make so many errors and it leads to so many goals against average. It probably does even itself out a little bit in if you drop down to the Championship. But when you're in the Premier League, you can't allow for that many mistakes.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Obviously, Luke, obviously being a Forest fan, do you have any concern of you guys being in the relegation zone? Because obviously you floated around there a few times last season. Do you feel like that it's going to be another challenging season, or are you kind of impressed with how it started off for you?
That very much depends on if we get an injury to a striker. We are going to put huge faith in the wide options that we brought in, Ramon Sosa, Jota Silva, which were great in the cup game against Newcastle, but not really seen a lot of them in the Premier League yet. I think I've been impressed with certain aspects. We're still yet to go for the second goal in a game. Like we seem to very much score a goal and hope that 1-0 is going to be enough, which so far in both games at home, we found out very quickly that it's just not. It took about 2 minutes between Chris Wood's goal and John Rickner Bellegarde's goal at the weekend. Like, clearly defending still not really our strong point, so why are we trying to do it so much in a game and putting ourselves under that position? I don't think we'll probably struggle this year, but I think we're definitely going to have to start seeing games out better.
Yeah, I get that, and obviously, it is a bit concerning because I thought like it was quite even versus Wolves, but obviously you conceded straight away after Chris Wood scored. So obviously it's having that mindset to, like you said, see games out or chase for the extra goal because it was a quick and confident start from Forest from what I saw, and then obviously always conceding like straight away after you've just scored is obviously it just ruins your momentum, I believe. So it was just the fact that neither team, like for 80 minutes, like just tried and pushed for a second. So, it's gone.
Well, it's worth also pointing out that huge credit has to go to Sam Johnston because in the second half we were pushing a little bit more and for the winning goal, and he did some unbelievable saves. Like, I think there was one header from a corner, and he pulled off an unbelievable save, but we're not clinical enough in certain areas. We'll go to the box, and then half of our team is on the left-hand side. Like,
Yeah.
some of you guys need to be in the box because otherwise we're crossing it into an empty space.
Yeah. So obviously the 1-1 against Wolves, like, do you feel like that as the season goes on, you'll be able to push out more when it comes to, or see out games more, would you say? Because I feel like that when you guys are at home, you do seem to be quite like tougher to beat. It's when you're on the road, which is where you really seem to drop your points. That's just obviously from my perspective. Obviously, I'm not a Forest fan, so it's that. I might be wrong. What would you think on that?
Yeah, away has definitely been a problem for us than more so than at home. We've kind of booked the trend a little bit of our first 3 games because we've drew both our home games and won our only away game. So time will tell.
Yeah.
I think bringing in Ward-Prowse on deadline day will add a lot to us because one thing we struggled to do last season was take a set piece. I mean, the amount of times we took a corner and it failed to beat the first man, not even the front post, but the first man in front of the front post was literally astronomical.
Yeah.
And then you take a free kick and you'd wonder why you're taking it, because it just end up in the stand. So for me, we've sort of addressed that area.
Yeah.
We've tried to address the area defending set pieces by having Nikola Milenkovic come in. So we've tried to add to our weak spots. It's just now, can we continually push forward? And is Nuno going to wise up to the fact that making 2 attacking substitutions on the 90th minute with 10 minutes at a time probably isn't the wisest of options?
Yeah. Oh, well, obviously, like you're just chasing the game at that point, though, aren't you? You are desperate to get the 3 points, so you can see why Nuno did that. But obviously, it also could have backfired. But I get your point. But Billy and Tony, you've both been quiet for a while. Your teams both faced each other. Time to bring you in. Take it away, because I haven't even watched the highlights on this, so I have no idea of this game. So take it away. Obviously, Newcastle won 2-1, but obviously, like I said, just take it away.
Yeah,
Listen,
I mean,
Tony. Well, I'll start by saying at least it wasn't as bad as the last 2 times we played against you, right? at St James's Park.
10 goals conceded, 10 goals for us and 1 for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a frustrating game, to be honest. Like, we dominated the ball, and it's interesting when you mention Southampton. There's only Tottenham have had more possession in the Premier League this season than Southampton. They've had more possession this season than Man City overall. And we've had a lot of the ball, but didn't really do enough with it. And I think that was the story of the Newcastle game. I think when you look at the Newcastle team, their front 3 is unbelievable. Isak, Gordon, and obviously Harvey Barnes, a good player as well. But I think Isak and Gordon in particular are 2 outstanding players. And they didn't have to create a lot to beat us, which I think was unfortunate. In the last few games we played there, they've absolutely blown us away. That wasn't the kind of game this time. But equally as frustrating, because no points is the same as no points. If we lose 6-0, we lose 2-1. So it's a frustrating game. But I just think the difference was that the quality that Newcastle have in the front 3, which we don't have at the moment, particularly with Solanke being injured. But it's just a horrible place for us to go. At the moment we can't seem to even get a point there these days. But how did you think it went, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, we're not at our best. We've played 3 games and we haven't really got going yet. That's the thing, Look, when we took the lead against Spurs on Sunday, very good goal from Harvey Barnes, lovely cross from Lloyd Kelly, and the quick throw in as well, which caught Tottenham napping a bit. But the precision on the goal from Barnes was fantastic, let's be honest. I don't think any keeper's getting near that, to be fair. I mean, yes, we're front 3, Gordon, Barnes, and then Isak in the middle is a good combination. We need to see it. I mean, look, Harvey Barnes is a very good player, and I think he will get better. But I just think there's something missing with just Anthony Gordon's still not at it at the moment, but I don't know if this is down to the Euros, not getting played much in the Euros, so he hasn't had a lot of game time, which I was a bit frustrated at, because he should have played more in the Euros, and I think a lot of neutral fans would actually stand out there and say, why wasn't he out more on the left wing? He was better than what Phil Foden would have been, that's for sure. So look, it just seems we're just trying to, get ourselves going, but we just can't seem to get going at the moment. And hope the international breaks possibly come at the right time. So hopefully some of the players that are still there, that are not away on international duty, can get a lot of training in ahead of, the next game away at the Wolves. But look, I wasn't too impressed by the performance from us. Nick, the goal we conceded, I'm going to put it out there now. Nick Pope was poor for that. I don't know what he was trying to do with that. You're either going to push it out for a corner or you've got to catch it somehow. And I just, and all you're doing is you're laying it on a plate for somebody to put the ball in. And Brennan Johnson's ball went across the box. And because Dan Burn had somebody behind him, he panicked. So as he tried to kick it, it actually went into his own goal. So when that went in, I was sort of deflated, thinking, "But this is what Spurs deserve," because Spurs were the better team. You had more possession than us. You had 20 shots in that game. We only had 9 shots. Although you only had one on target, which was the goal, as you would see. And, but Nick Pope came to our rescue in that game. He pulled off some top-class saves, let's be honest. James Maddison, Pedro Porro, to name but a few. Nick Pope made 6 saves in that game. If it wasn't for Nick Pope being on fire, we would have well and truly lost that game, possibly 3 or even 4-1 maybe. And then obviously Joe Linton's ball through to Jacob Murphy, who got in behind the defence. I don't know where your defence was. It was non-existent basically. And then Murphy had the easiest of tasks. He could have gone for goal, but instead of going for goal, he thought, no, I'm going to roll this across and give Isak the easiest tap-in he'll ever have. And Isak got that goal. And look, I haven't been impressed with Isak for the 3 games. We've seen glimpses, but we haven't seen the proper Isak yet. Now, I think now he scored that goal, even though it's a tap-in, and people might say, yeah, but that's an easy goal. I could have scored that goal. Yeah, maybe. But for a player like Isak, who's a striker, it doesn't matter how your goal comes. You could have the most scruffiest goal going. You could slide on the ball and it rolls in. It doesn't matter. It's just getting that first goal. Now he's got that first goal. Isak will come back after international duty more hungry, wanting more goals in the Premier League. And he now could go on a scoring spree. So, look, I thought Tottenham shaded it. Yes, we weren't quite the races, but we got the job done. We won the game. And I'm going to say it now, we won ugly. Because if you look at great teams in the past, in the Premier League, have won titles or won trophies or whatever, you don't always play the best football to win these trophies. Sometimes you've got to play ugly football, Remember the Arsenal under Wenger, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, or George Graham, 1-0, 1-0, But they won stuff winning like that. Not the best football, but they're getting the results. That's what we're doing. We're not playing our best at the moment, but we're getting the results. Okay, against Bournemouth, we played well for the first 15 minutes. After that, we sort of tailed off. Second half, we changed it around a bit. We brought Lewis Hall on, and Anthony, and Harvey Barnes came on, and we looked a different team. But we were lucky to scrape that with a draw because we should have lost that game because VAR disallowed a goal for Bournemouth, which possibly shouldn't have been disallowed. But so we got lucky there. We scraped it against Southampton, a team who've come up. Brenton Diaz is probably going to get an Oscar at the end of the season for his reaction to, not even a headbutt, Probably a pigeon's feather would fly on his head and he'd probably fall down like that, holding his face, So, look, we've had a great start in terms of having 7 points on the board, which is fantastic. And, I'll take 7 points all day. Leaves us 5th in the table. But I just want to see us starting to play a bit better.
Yeah.
The only annoyance I've got is the fact is we did not bring that right side centre back or that right winger in this summer window, and that has frustrated me madly. Now I'm glad Forest turned down the Elanga bids on Friday when we bid 35 million and then 50 million. I don't doubt Elanga's a great player, but he's not a £50 million player, that's for sure. And I don't mean that any disrespect to Forest whatsoever, but he isn't a £50 million player. But it looked like it was a panic buy for our owners to say, oh, look, we're getting somebody through the door because we've had a poor window. Now,
it was pure desperation, wasn't it? So
yeah, the Mark Gui thing, that was an absolute waste of time, a waste of resources, 3.5 weeks wasted on that deal. If you want to go on newspaper reports, said Eddie Howe was offered options. Eddie Howe turned them down and he said, I just want Gui. Now, look, Eddie Howe is a good manager and he's done fantastic for our football club. He kept us up when we lost we hadn't won a game in 14 games before we won against Burnley. Now, normally you go down, but we stayed up. We beat the odds and stayed up healthily as well. Following season, we got Champions League. Last season, we finished 7th. and it was a freak of a season because normally when you finish 7th, you're in the Europa Conference League. But a team called Manchester United decided to go to Wembley and turn over City, who must have still been on the beer from the week before, because Man City looked like they were still in a nightclub. They weren't playing at all.
They were.
And Man United deserved the trophy that day. They deserved the trophy that day. And I actually backed City to win that game to get the double-double. Is a historic double-double because nobody's ever done that. So because of that, we didn't end up with European football. So Chelsea took our place because obviously Man United going to the Europa League. So that's why I was saying it was a freak of a season. And, but I get Eddie Howe wants to have Premier League players, but it's not all about buying players in England. You've got to go abroad and bring players in. And that's what and I want to see Eddie Howe be a bit more expansive and think outside the box and think, okay, I have to go for players outside of the UK
just on what you're saying there, Tony. Obviously, a player that came on for you against Spurs was Tonali, who's definitely going to be like a new signing for you this season.
Yes.
Now, where do you think he comes in for your midfield? Obviously, for me, as an outsider looks perspective, I think he benches Longstaff, but is Longstaff like a starter for you guys? And do you value him, or do you feel like Tonali just walks straight into that midfield?
Once his match fitness is there, I think Tonali starts. I think Longstaff drops to the bench. Longstaff's got less than a year left on his deal now. Look, Longstaff's been a good servant to Newcastle. Rafa Benitez brought him back from Blackpool when he was on loan. He done well for Benitez. He got a new contract. Lost 2 years of his footballing career under Steve Bruce because Steve Bruce, with his dinosaur tactics, totally ruined him. Like he ruined a few players. Eddie Howe sort of got him back to the player he was. Last season, yes, he was carrying an injury all season. We had no Tonali for 10 months. But, okay, he's not been too bad, but I don't think he's if you want to be an elite club and you want to go to that next level, does Sean Longstaff take you to that next level? Absolutely not. Not whatsoever. And we're not hearing of any contract talks from anything. So that suggests to me that he could be on his way out next summer. We've got quite a few players ending contracts next summer. So it's going to be interesting to see how many of them actually do stay or how many go. But, for me, Tonali walks straight back into that midfield. Absolutely, 100%. Against Forest in the Cup, at first half, he was the best player on the pitch. Let's be honest. Yeah. After 60 minutes of being taken off, you could see how the quality was there for somebody who's been out for 10 months and all he's done is train.
Yeah.
And thankfully, his mental health's been absolutely fine because he's got a club that supported him, the players supported him, and that's what you want. And he's going to repay that faith as well. And look, I've always rated Tonali, and I said, even from our first transfer window, one player I'd love to see at Newcastle is Sandro Tonali. And when we did sign him, I couldn't believe what we saw. And for 55 million, I still think we got him for a bargain, but I still think AC Milan knew exactly why they were selling him at 55 million, because they knew something was going on with his life, with the gambling or whatever. And he's back in the Italy squad, which is absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, most likely. Billy, I want to come to you as well about a certain signing that you made, I believe it was last season, in Brennan Johnson. Now, Harry is very vocal about Brennan Johnson, and he likes this player a lot, but I've seen quite a few Spurs fans quite target Brennan Johnson. Now, what are your takes on him? Because obviously he seems to be on the bench quite regular and doesn't seem that when he does get them starts, he doesn't really impact the game as much. Well, obviously, what do you think on Brennan Johnson?
I'm a big fan of the player. I think he's a really, really good young player. He's probably a bit frustrated because he hasn't quite hit the number of goals and assists that he would maybe want. He's missed quite a few chances. I think he missed more big chances than any player in the Premier League last season, stats-wise. But if you take the Newcastle game, for example, I don't know if you agree, Tony, but until Brennan Johnson came on, we weren't really threatening Newcastle that much. And when Brennan Johnson came on, we were suddenly hammering them down the right hand side, because Brennan Johnson really made a huge impact. And obviously he didn't get the goal, but he got the flick on before the own goal. So he can be a really, really dangerous player. He's got absolute pace to burn. I think with Johnson that I've noticed, and I don't know if Luke will agree with this, but because obviously he probably knows him better than I do because he played for us for a long time. He seems to be a really confidence player, and when it's not going his way, he seems to get lost in the game quite a lot. And I think, to be honest, Spurs fans have been a little bit too harsh on him. I think he had a pretty decent number of goals and assists last season. And he's a really, really dangerous player when he's got the ball. And sometimes just because he's not the kind of, we just bought Odebear, who's kind of a more winger, who'll take a player on 1v1 and he go outside of a player. Brennan Johnson doesn't really do that. But what he does do is he's excellent at following his Ange ball and getting to the byline, putting a cross in, or which he did to Richarlison quite a few times this season. I don't think any of our players got any more assists than Brennan Johnson last season. So I'm personally a big fan of the player, and I just wish our fans would give him a bit more support because he's a young guy who's clearly a massive confidence player.
Yeah, it does see that way. Obviously, Luke, do you want to take over about Brennan Johnson?
Yeah, on Brennan Johnson, he's always been very inconsistent as a player.
Yeah, that's what we've seen at Spurs as well.
Even in the Championship promotion season, there would be a period of time where he'd do everything up until the box, and then because he's so effective, teams would know to go and mark him up. The only problem is with our right-hand side at that point, we'd also got Jed Spence on that side, which then made it even more difficult to defend because their link-up play is immense. They know where each other's going to run to, and it just creates utter havoc down the right-hand side. But then when we came up to the Premier League, again, throughout the first half of that season, the comments were, we just wish Brennan would believe in himself a bit more. And take
exactly the same.
And take a player on. And actually know that he can do it because he's done it at Forest a few times. He's managed to fly down the right-hand side, beat the player and put the ball across. So he can do it. I think it's just he's not going to be that player that comes in and consistently does it week in, week out. To be honest, I'd say that if you're getting there and you're putting the ball across, if people aren't getting on the end of it, that's not Brennan's problem. That's on the people not making the right runs. So, really, is it a Brennan Johnson problem? And this is why I'd ask any Spurs fan criticising Johnson. Is it actually a Brennan Johnson problem you've got? Or is it the fact you've just got favourite players that you just don't want to criticise, so you're just going to look for a scapegoat?
Yeah, and our fan base in particular are pretty... once they get a scapegoat in their head, they can be pretty horrendous to that player. And I hope it doesn't develop into Brennan Johnson. And the interesting thing was he had 2 crosses against Newcastle, and both times he flashed the ball across the box, no one was there. Son was not there to be seen, and Odebear wasn't there either. So I think he's doing everything right, and I just hope, hopefully, when Solanke comes back, he's got a bit of more of a target man in the middle. He can be much more effective because I think he'll start against Arsenal because Ange always plays Brennan Johnson in the big games because obviously he's really good on like transitions and stuff. He's kind of that breakaway player that we saw, that breakaway goal that Newcastle scored against us. He's the kind of player that can do that pretty well. So, I've got a lot of hope for him, and I hope that he has a really good season this season.
Well, let's hope so, because he does seem like a very talented young player. So I feel like that with the way that Ange likes to attack, no doubt Johnson will score a few goals, but it'll be one of them situations. I feel like it's the same with United, like where Rashford, when he'll score his goal, all the fans will be like, oh, what a player he is. And I feel like that same with Brennan Johnson there. There's certain players at each club where they get quite a lot of stick for no reason, but when they score a goal, every fan acts like that they're a brilliant player and stuff, where players can have bad forms, like for example, we all work, and I'm pretty sure if we have a bad day at the office, people know that we're still going to show up to work the next day, but sometimes an off day at the office is necessary. But unfortunately, fighting for United, Rashford has been slowed at the office for the last 18 months now. But anyway, we'll move on to a few games quickly. Ipswich versus Fulham, 1-1. I know Barnaby in the comments, I don't know if he's still here, but he's a Fulham fan. No doubt he'll be a bit frustrated with that. But Ipswich at home, I feel like it was a bit like the Luton situation last season, where it's tough to go to newly promoted sides and at home, because obviously the fans are just going to be behind them 100%. And I feel like that Ipswich, if they have any chance of staying up, obviously this is also down to Leicester and Southampton. If they have any hope of picking up points, they're going to use it to the home advantage of the crowd. So obviously, I feel like that Ipswich would probably surprise me. They did seem like a better team than what I thought it was. But Adama Traore for that goal as well was brilliant, I thought. But at the end of the day, it's just a mid-table game, and it was obviously decent, I guess. But in the following game, obviously being Leicester versus Villa, now Villa won 2-1, obviously. But I think we all expected Villa to win this game. Leicester, obviously, they have seemed to be decent since they've come back up. But Villa in the Champions League, they were one of the best teams in the league last season. They beat quite a few of the top teams. I believe they beat Arsenal. I think they went toe to toe with Man City as well. So it was a good day for them. Obviously, Luke, we've already spoke about Forest and Wolves. Does anyone have any comments for Man City and West Ham? Because apart from Haaland doing well in the FPL, I couldn't really care less because it's City. So
yeah, that's it. I just think they look as good as ever, really, don't they? Traditionally, I think in the last couple of seasons they've started not poorly, but they've had a bit of not the strongest start, and then after Christmas they usually win every game, but this season they've won. They just look unbelievable. Haaland looks unbelievable, and I just wonder what you guys think. I'm just talking about Ipswich and Southampton. I just wonder what you guys think of this idea about these newly promoted teams trying to play football and trying to play good football, because we saw it last season with Burnley and it was not effective, but I kind of admire the fact that Southampton and Ipswich are going to try and play against teams. Like I said earlier, Southampton only one team in the Premier League has had more possession than Southampton. Do you think that's a silly thing to try and do, or do you think there's merit in the fact that Ipswich and Southampton have both come up and they're trying to play football in the right way, attacking football, or do you think it's suicide for a newly promoted team?
I mean, look, out the promoted teams, and I've said this, I live, about 45, 50 minutes away from Ipswich. Because I live down in Suffolk now, but I'm originally from Newcastle. I've lived down there 12 years. But, look, I see them quite regular on the news and things like that. And they're and a lot of people may not know, because, like as I say, I get the local news, so I see what they're all about. They've got some good, wealthy owners behind them that people don't know about. And these guys invested into that club when they were in League One. And the club wasn't a right mess, let's be honest, because I worked with a couple of guys who were Ipswich fans, and, when their previous owner, Marcus Evans, ran the club into the ground, when he got rid of Mick McCarthy, that was the start of the downfall, because they weren't happy that Mick McCarthy went, because he was a solid manager who used to keep them in the Championship. Then they got relegated after they got rid of him. And obviously it's took a while to get back. And then obviously Kieran McKenna left Man United as a coach. Nobody, he's never managed in his career. And he happens to take them up, not only to the Championship, but takes them up the Premier League in 2 promotions in a row, and does a remarkable job for Ipswich, let's be honest. And I think when they signed that Maury Hutchison, I thought that was a very good signing, because he's got a lot of talent, that young lad. He's only 20, so, the lad's got a lot of talent. I actually think Ipswich will stay up. And I'm going to say this, I don't think they'll go down. Southampton, for me, will definitely go down. I can't see where they're going to stay up, Southampton. But I think Ipswich, yes, they could have lost Kieran McKenna over the summer, but he stayed, which I thought was great of him to do that.
I thought he'd be England. I thought he would have took the England job.
I don't think he'd get the England job yet.
Time,
yeah, he was. But I think Ipswich will stay up. When they played Liverpool on that opening game, the first half, they were toe to toe with Liverpool, Liverpool just tweaked something second half and won the game. But, that was probably down to first game nerves. But they haven't been that bad. I mean, they took the lead against City. Yes, okay, they got 4-1 off City. A couple of mistakes from Muric as well, which doesn't help when you got to keep on making a couple of mistakes. I mean, if you took them 2 mistakes away from Muric, they may have only lost 2-1, which then you look at that and think, wow, that's not a huge dent in their goal difference or whatever. They haven't been massively overrun. But I think when they play teams around them, the likes of Forest, the likes of Leicester, and like they've just played Fulham and teams like that, that's where they'll be looking to get their points. And I think Ipswich could surprise a lot of people. I mean, you look at Forest, they stayed up that first season, and then obviously they stayed up again last season. But I think Ipswich could be a team that could stay up. And I think if they do stay up, I think you'll see them open up more and spend a bit more. It's a club close to a lot of Newcastle fans as well, Ipswich, because of obviously Sir Bobby Robson. We've got that link. And we call it the Sir Bobby Robson Derby now, believe it or not. The last time we played Ipswich, when we were on the Championship, we have great games with Ipswich. And, the 2 sets of fans get on really well. And I think Ipswich fans were looking for... That was the first thing they were looking for, because like I say, I know a couple of Ipswich fans. The first thing they looked for on the fixture list was, when do we play Newcastle? They weren't interested about when do they play, say, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea. It was, when do we play Newcastle United, home and away? That's what they were looking for. So it's great for them. And I think they will stay up. I think they will. I think the turn of one team that's got to go down the season has got to be Everton. There's only so many times you can just keep escaping relegation, and one day it's going to catch up with you and it's going to bite you in the backside. And Everton's that club. They should have gone down the year Leicester went down. Leicester should have stayed up. It was only because Bournemouth couldn't get an equaliser. If Bournemouth score an equaliser against Everton, they're down, And look, they're a club that's in trouble. They've got an owner that's, he's just run that club into the ground machinery, let's be honest. But I certainly do think it's Everton's turn. You don't go 2 goals up against Bournemouth and then capitulate like that and get, Bournemouth get a goal back in the 87th minute, and then they score again 4 minutes later, then 3 minutes later. If you're going to capitulate like that, you don't deserve to be in the Premier League. You don't deserve to stay up. And, so, look, it is what it is. But I think this season, a cat's got 9 lives. I think Everton's running out of their 9 lives now, and I think this is the season they go down. And at least they'll have a nice brand new swanky stadium in the Championship for next season. And I tell you now, they won't find the Championship easy if they do go down. But I certainly think Everton must be the team to go down this season. They've got to be one of the favourites now, because that is just really, really poor, I mean,
what I do like is that United fans got into a lot of stick with Everton fans over the summer, over the Branthwaite deal, and Everton fans were demanding of like 75, 80 million. Tell you what, that 30 million release clause is going to look absolutely beautiful on Branthwaite's contract in the Championship, because no doubt a lot of clubs will be after Branthwaite if they do go down, because a 30 million release clause for Branthwaite, like even if he's coming in as a backup or whether he's coming in as a starter, a lot of teams will be sniffing around Branthwaite, I think, for that type of price, But Everton have got quite a few good players. I feel like that. You get players like Jordan Pickford as well, who've been at the club for so long. I don't think he's going to stick around if they go down. I feel like that'd be a complete, disassembled team almost. So I feel like I do worry for Everton, because obviously they are a very historic club in the Premier League. They've been in the club, I think, that for the longest out of any other club, obviously, when it comes to relegation and stuff. So, Everton, I think they've got, is it Aston Villa in the next game? So again, that's going to be another very tough game for them. It's going to be tough for them. It's going to be really, really tough. And are the Everton owners, are they going to jump ship early and get rid of Deitch and then try and go for something else? Or are they going to try and stick with Deitch?
Have they got the money to do that though?
Exactly. It's all up in the air, because obviously with the financial issues as well. So it's going to be interesting on what actually happens with Everton this season.
I
But go on.
Yeah, I want to just ask Luke a question here. Forest fan, obviously. Right. So when we played you in the cup last week, obviously, did you not only did you have Teamu's Jack Grealish playing for you, Jota Silva, who I thought made, by the way, fantastic goal. No goalkeeper in the world is saving that goal whatsoever. No chance. So great goal from him, by the way. And I only joke when I say the Timu Jack Grealish, because it's the way he's got his hair and the socks down. He just, it's a Jack Grealish double, but the Portuguese style. But what I want to say is Carlos Miguel, that goalkeeper you're saying from Corinthians, for 3.4 million, his release clause. Now, apparently Corinthians are up in arms over this because they didn't want him going. Now, I thought he had a very good game against Newcastle. Yes, okay, he had that shaky start where the ball, he parries the ball and it goes in the path of Joe Willock and he puts it in the back of the net. But that's just one of those things that can happen to any goalkeeper. But watching him throughout the game, I thought he had a really good game. 6'8", he's a huge unit, an absolute beast he is. Even in the penalty shootout, he saved the penalty from Joe Linton. And I just thought he looks an absolute menace. And I think, you've got our former keeper in your goal at the moment, Matt Sells, who we didn't actually rate, to be fair. Even in the Championship, he was absolutely awful, let's be honest. I think if this Carlos Miguel gets a run in your team, he's going to be some keeper in the Premier League. I really do think that. And he could end up being a keeper that keeps you up and saves you a lot of points. And, what did you think of him on his debut? Because I thought he had quite a steady game, if I'm honest. He didn't look nervous. And at 25, and I think, do you know what? What a keeper. And then yet we signed somebody from yourselves, Flacademous, who's not even getting in the team now. He's not even been on the bench for us, apart from the pre-season, and had a couple of run-outs and produced a few good saves in pre-season, and we've been trying to offload him already on loan. Because obviously it was a PSR thing, because you got Elliot Anderson, which I'd like to ask you your opinion on Elliot Anderson as well from us. But, I just look at questioning, why don't we go for these keepers that go for like 3.4 million? But yeah, Carlos Miguel, what do you make of him?
All right, well, there's a lot to go through there. Firstly, Carlos Miguel, not a lot really gets past Carlos Miguel with the fact that he's 6'8". I think it definitely helps when you've got players there like Moreno on the left-hand side and the Maria on the other side. We're just assembling a play at the beginning of M, by the way. I think we're like 4 or 5 players now with their surnames beginning with M. But yeah, very well assured as a keeper. I think in the long run, he's probably going to phase Matt Sells outside, because even his distribution, it was basically midriff height at Teo Wanyi to basically control it, bring it down, and play it out to either Jota Silva or Ramon Sosa on the other side. It was a brilliant performance from a player that really only had pre-season, of which he only played the lesser teams. So it was good to see him play against an actual top team. And yeah, it's definitely an upgrade on Vlachodimos. Very sorry that we decided that was going to be the player we included in the swap deal. Well, it was kind of 2 separate deals, but in argument's sake, it was a swap deal. I definitely think we got the better of the bargain on that one. Whilst I'm also talking, whilst you were mentioning about going 2-0 up against Bournemouth, Tony, has anybody told Nottingham Forest that season that shouldn't happen either? Because we were 2-0 up and lost 3-2 at home to Bournemouth. So I was quietly smiling to myself when you said that. But we didn't even learn from it, because then the week later we went 2-0 up against Fulham and did exactly the same thing again. So, Everton at least have got the hope that they might not do that next game. Elliot Anderson, to answer your next question, very skillful, very direct. Definitely in the game against Wolves, he was showing a lot more through the middle because we're playing him alongside Sangare at the minute in a midfield too, as basically our makeshift replacement for Danilo, which was a shocking injury, by the way. But I think the only thing with Elliot Anderson is he then going to be able to adapt mid-game to different positions? Because I think once he's played central midfield for a long period in the game, we then sometimes push him out wide because we then decided we're going to put 3 midfielders in. We have this obsession with Nicolas Dominguez. Great player, but we have this obsession where he has to play at some point in a game. It's bizarre.
All right. Quickly, I've got 2 more games to run through. Obviously, the Chelsea and Crystal Palace game. Chelsea at home. Do you feel like that Chelsea have dropped points here, or do you feel like Crystal Palace were just too good for them? Because that Eze goal was pretty decent. I'm not going to lie. So, what do you guys think? Do you think Chelsea dropped points, or Crystal Palace? Do you think they were just?
Chelsea definitely dropped points there.
Definitely. The Palace lost the previous 2 games, didn't they, as well? And then they've obviously, and again, as a Spurs fan, it really pains me to say it, 'cause if I could sign one player over the summer window, it would have been Eze. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And I guess Tony would agree with me on this. They're a difficult club to deal with, as Newcastle found out with Mark Gay as well. Some brilliant players, Palace. They've got like Wharton, Elise, obviously lost to Bayern Munich, Eze, Gahey, but it's really difficult to sign these players from them. I think Eze apparently had a 60 million release clause that had to be paid in full, which is why no one got anywhere near it. So, and then how much did you guys end up offering Tony for Gahey in the end? What was the last bid that got rejected?
65 million.
70 million. 70 million.
Which is, it's crazy.
We're going to pay 65 million up front and then 5 million in add-ons.
Yeah, see, I feel like that. Like, I'm not to I know it's a bad saying that United made, but I don't think even Harry Maguire. Well, I feel like the Gahey one be seen worse than the Harry Maguire one if that went through, because like the thing about Gahey, he's a very decent upcoming centre back, but he had an average season for Crystal Palace, and that's me being fair. I feel like that Bramthwaite was the much more favoured and excited young English centre back in the league season, and Gahey, he had a decent international tournament at the Euros, but apart from that, I don't think that's justified to use paying nearly 70 million. It's ridiculous. So I feel like that. Obviously, yes, you needed that right side of centre back that you said before, but no doubt at the same time, I think you've kind of like missed a bullet there. I feel like that you've kind of like done something. You'd probably like go and get someone in January. So we'll have to see for Newcastle, but obviously with Shah and Botman still being unavailable at the moment, and Dan Burn just coming back, you guys are really short at centre back, so we'll have to see. But last game that we need to talk about, and it's my beloved Manchester United. Now, do any of you guys have any questions about my thoughts on this game?
What were your obviously, Liverpool has been a difficult fixture for pretty much every team that's played over the last few years. What were your expectations going into the game? Were you expecting a positive result, or because Liverpool have been very good so far this season? What was your thoughts going into it?
I generally thought it was going to be a 1-0 to United. I mean, there's the previews out there and videos I did for TalkSport stuff when I was outside Old Trafford, where I said that I feel like United might just scrape it 1-0. I said Liverpool have been very decent under Slot towards the start. They were very relentless during pre-season, and obviously they're the only team yet to actually concede a goal in the Premier League. So Slot is definitely doing something right. I really like that the way that Slot's come into Liverpool, and you haven't seen really many egos clashing with him. And yes, Slot is quite lucky, you could say as well, because he has inherited a side that are used to challenging for titles. So, you do expect, the whole new manager bounce and the quality of the players Liverpool have. You expect them to kind of be in the position they are almost. And I feel like that this is where Slot might get found out. He might have a very good first season, but then does he have what it takes to, continue competing with Arsenal and City? Like, you've got the likes of Van Dijk, Mo Salah, and Trent all in the final years of the contracts. And, yes, they didn't sign anyone in the summer, but Liverpool, I feel like that they've got quite a few eyes on him. And I feel like that, even though that they're yet to concede a goal, City are still sat above them. Like, in the league, which just explains how good Man City are. But no, going into this game, obviously I'm always going to back my team. I predict United to win practically every single game, but obviously I'm always wrong because we're shit. So at the end of the day, sorry Harry, I know I'm not supposed to swear, but it just comes out every now and again. But no, at the end of the day, obviously I'm a season ticket holder for United, and in the Stretford end, it was bad. We were having arguments and everything. I mean, I had a massive argument with this one United fan because he was defending Rashford and saying that Rashford was our best forward in that game. And I said, all right, yeah, he made 2 crosses into the box and Xerxes should have scored from him. But like I said before earlier in the show, that Rashford's been pants for the last 18 months, and all of a sudden he puts 2 crosses into the box, and that deserves him to start getting praise again. We know the quality Rashford has. We saw that first season under Ten Hag where he scored 30 goals, but even that for me, that's a myth because everyone acts like Rashford was sensational throughout that season. He wasn't. It was from the end of October towards the early February period. It was brilliant for them few months, but then towards the start of the season and the end of that season, he wasn't that. His form dropped off again. So yes, he went on a sensational run, but Rashford is a very frustrating player because he can score goals, but he's just everything about him seems to have changed. Instead of him taking on defenders, he'll make the half turn and pass it back to the midfield or back to the defenders, which is not what Rashford's all about. And for me, that's a tactic. That's where Ten Hag is receiving a lot of criticism because there are a lot of rumours that he has ruined quite a few of our players. So we'll have to see how it goes. But obviously the Casemiro situation as well. I don't think it's. I think a lot of fans have overreacted. Casemiro is still, for me, a very quality player, but the position he's being asked to play in just isn't Casemiro. That's why he struggled so much last season. I mean, half the time he was playing at centre-back. So, at the end of the day, I mean, that's, for example, like if you ask Lionel Messi to go in goal and ask him to save a goal, like, he's going to try his best, but, we all know he's going to get dinked half the time. So, the way I look at it is that Liverpool, you see, I got slated for this on my channel when I turned around and said that Liverpool weren't that good. It's just United were that bad. Would you say that I'm wrong in saying that, or do you feel like that I'm kind of onto something? Because when I watched that game, Liverpool, obviously, when they were going forward, they looked really threatening. But the only goals that they scored from were from the mistakes United made. Obviously, Casemiro making the 2 mistakes and Kobe Mainoo getting caught on the ball. Like, what would you say from outsiders on the United Liverpool game?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Liverpool, yes, they had chances and scored, and look, they possibly could have won that game 5 or 6-0 if they put all the chances away. But yeah, look, there was nothing great from Liverpool. Let's be honest, there wasn't. And this is me looking at it as a neutral. I think it was a very even game till I got that first goal. And then after that, it just seemed to be like once you started making errors, that was it. You were going to get punished, and that's exactly what happened. You got punished. But yeah, I thought it was an even game up until that point. And maybe maybe 3-0 might flatter Liverpool, but at the end of the day, they've put their chances away he was having, and that's how they've won the game. I mean, do you think, to be honest, Dan, do you think Ten Hag's going to be sacked soon? Do you think between him and Sean Dyche, who's the first one going to go? I mean, doesn't look good, does it? The sack race.
It doesn't, but it's only also 3 games into the season, and the way I look at it is that, I mean, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, under Jose Mourinho, I never said manager out. It's not in my nature. I mean, obviously my granddad made me love football, and every time I'd go to a game with him, it was win, lose or draw. You always clap your team off and clap your manager off, no matter what. That's what my granddad instilled into me, and I don't have what it is. Obviously, I'll criticize players on my channel, but like when it comes to like saying a player should be kicked out of a club or the manager should be sacked, for me it isn't in my nature. I'll back the manager until he is sacked, and the way it's going and the way the last season ended, it is looking worrying. Obviously, the FA Cup was a massive saviour for Eric Ten Hag and definitely bought him some time. But the way I look at it is like, them, what was it called? Like glass things where the sand is just pouring towards the bottom. And I feel like it's only a matter of time before the sand is at the bottom and Ten Hag's time's up, because there's only so many times you can flip it over until you get bored of it and you let the sand run out. So I want him to stay, but it is quite concerning when, like, obviously a lot of fans were really excited when United brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy back as assistant manager, and Rennie Heck, I believe, is the other assistant manager United brought in. I mean, both two very respectable managers in the Dutch league last season. But this is where I'm saying that, for me, the way I look at it is that would 2 managers at 2 clubs come to Manchester United and then not be some sort of plan in place that if tonight is to get sacked, either one of them are going to become an interim manager? Because if it's me, you don't leave your head coach role to become an assistant manager. Like, for me, that seems ludicrous. Now, a lot of fans would rather Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I feel like that these are the fans that live off the ex-legend. And obviously, we've been down that road before with the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and it didn't turn out too well. So the way I look at it is that I want to know which manager out of all the managers we have at our club plays the best. I mean, Ten Hag, I'm really fond of him. I just feel like that, how he mentioned about before about players having confidence. I feel like Ten Hag needs to have that confidence in himself. I don't think he believes in himself at the moment. And I feel like that he's just relying on moments and players just to dig him out of his own hole that he's put himself in. So we'll have to see how it goes. But obviously, Tony, to answer your question, as it stands, and if it continues the way it is, then it could be a sacking before Christmas, because I'm looking at United's next fixtures. I mean, it's after international break, 12:30 kickoff. United are the first game away at Southampton. Now, we all said in this video that Southampton are going to go down, but that's probably one of them freak results. It's after international break. It's 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday. United might lose that game or might drop points, and then the pressure's on even more. We've got Barnsley in the Carabao Cup. I mean, it's not like hoping we beat him. It's praying you're beating these teams now, because I don't have any confidence in my team at the moment, which is gutting. Then we've got Crystal Palace away at Selhurst Park, which is always a tough ground to go to. Then we've got the Europa League starts, and then we've got Tottenham at home, where Billie, I'm pretty sure you'll be looking forward to that game, because Tottenham have had quite a few good results against United. I think you've beaten us once and drew with us. So right now you've got the upper hand when it comes to head-to-heads. So I feel like United, and then obviously we've got Aston Villa away after that game. So Ten Hag's got a massive month ahead of him, and I feel like that he needs to be really careful, because if we start drawing and dropping points, have a poor start in Europe, he probably will pull the plug. And for me, obviously, after 3 years, you expect your team, with all the investment he's had as well, you expect your team to sort of be challenging at this point. But we'll have to see. Like, because the way I look at it as well is like, yes, it is Ten Hag's 3rd year, but it's also the 1st official year of Ineos under the new ownership. So, with the structure in place, I'm just hoping that they have a plan and they work towards it. And if Ten Hag is to leave, then it is by mutual consent and he isn't getting sacked. But we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's everything. We'll quickly go over our next games for each individual club. So, I mean, I've just ranted about United possibly losing against Southampton, but I feel like we'll win that game 2-0. But let's have a look who's next. So, Luke, you've got Forest and they play. Just get it up quickly. You have Liverpool next at Anfield. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, can we make a game of it and just not get battered? I mean, we've got to be switched on, because one thing I noticed within the Manchester United game is they hit a lot of their shots first time. They don't give the goalkeeper time to set. And if we're not closing them down and being awake, which revolves around half time not becoming our killer again, because we seem to just about get into being awake in a game, and then half time comes and then we come out and we're half asleep again. So really we need to put everything into this game and try and disrupt them a little bit, because really I can't see us getting anything out of the game. That's just me being honest. It's Liverpool. I'd like to say a draw, but yeah, I can't. I think that's me being heavily optimistic.
Fair enough, Paul. Newcastle, Tony, you have Wolves next away at Molineux, so it'd be a tough game, but Wolves haven't really started well, have they? So what would you say? Why do you feel like that Newcastle can get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, Molineux has always been a bit of a stickler for us, you know. Last season we got a draw down there in that horrible pouring rain. We lost 2-1 under Steve Bruce in pouring rain when Hwang scored twice against us, but then it was made a little bit sweeter because that was 5 days after that. Then the takeover happened. But last season we got a draw again in pouring down horrible conditions in the rain. Pedro Neto tore strips off us that day and went off injured. Thankfully, he's playing for Chelsea now. So, look, I would, before the season started, I would have said definitely look at a draw for that game. But I think we may come back a different team after the international break. We've got the confidence. We know we're on the up. I'm going to say we can go on and win this game. And I'm going to go for a win because, like you say, they have been poor. Chelsea put 6 past them. So if we're on our game and on it, we can certainly put a few past them. So yeah, I'm going to go for a win for us.
Awesome. And Billy, North London derby, I bet you're looking forward to this one. Obviously, like we said before, Declan Rice suspension. You know, Arsenal, obviously, yes, they're Arsenal and they've won 2 and drew 1. But obviously, I feel like Declan Rice will be a massive miss. I mean, do you feel confident with that game? Obviously, you mentioned Brennan Johnson probably be involved for the big game. Now, what do you think going into this game?
I think the Declan Rice suspension is massive for us because Marino, their new signing, has broke his shoulder as well, so he won't be playing. So they're a bit light in centre midfield. And it was a horrible game for us last season. They battered us. They beat us 3-0 in the end at our ground. We've had some pretty poor results against them. We haven't beaten them at home since Conte was our manager. So we drew a result against them. Over the last couple of seasons, they've been a lot better than us. But I just hope that Declan Rice and being light in midfield, I hope we can come away. It's one of those games, as every fan knows, the week going into a derby is awful for your nerves and everything. I can't ever bear to say that I want them to get a result against us. So I'm going to say we'll win 1-0, even though I don't really truly believe that. But I can't bear to give them any credit. So I'm going to say 1-0 win.
Fair enough. Who do you think comes in for Declan Rice? Then do you think Jorginho, or do you think he puts someone
I think it have to be obviously Partey will start. I think it'll have to be Jorginho. Really. They don't really obviously Marino being injured. They've sold. They've loaned out the. I can't remember the name of the Portuguese player that they loaned as well. They don't have,
Vieira.
they're not Vieira. That's it. Yeah, they loaned out him as well. They don't have a bit light in centre midfield, and obviously when we put them at the Emirates last season, Jorginho gave ball away for Madison to put Son through to score. So yeah, I'm a lot more confident going into it with Partey and Jorginho will be against Partey and Rice. Yeah, I think that's a big loss for them. And I just pray that Mickey van der Ven is fit again because we missed him against Newcastle badly.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's the end of the show. It's dragged on a bit longer than I thought. Obviously, I do plan on, as it stands, hosting every Wednesday. So if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for staying with us. We're going to promote our own channels in a second. But as always, Harry, thank you so much for organising this. I've had a really great evening talking to these gents. So yeah, obviously we'll see you next Wednesday. But quickly, Luke, do you want to tell us where you can find you, mate?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube, Testing Talks Football. My Twitter I believe is at Luke18652110. That's the main ones, really.
Not the year you were born, was it? 1865, no?
No, that's the year Forrest was formed.
Tony, where can we find you, mate?
Yeah, so you can find me on my channel, which is there behind me on the screen. It's all Black and White TV on YouTube. Do check us out. Also, you can find me on Twitter, which is below there. I don't like putting X there, but it's just shorter than Twitter. At Tony31. So if you want to give me a follow, you can follow me on there and I'll follow you back. Not a problem at all. Also, I'm on Facebook as well. It's all Black and White TV. And also on Threads as well. It's all Black and White TV as well. And Instagram.
Nice. And Billy, Harry told me that you need no introduction, but
just Billie T. Just Billie T on Twitter, and I come on the show quite regularly, so I look forward to seeing you again soon, Dan. I'll hopefully be on in a couple of weeks as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And obviously you can find me, Dan, on Red Devils TV on YouTube and TikTok. Very close on YouTube as well to 2,000 subscribers. So, hopefully I can get to that milestone really, really soon. But anyway, that's been me. Thank you, everyone that's joined me this evening. Barnaby and everyone else in the comments. Matty. We've also had Peter as well, who's currently up at 5 o'clock in the morning in his job. So everyone who's commented and contributed to the chats, thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week, possibly with a different cast, or we'll have to see if it's the Four Musketeers once again. Anyway, I'll see you later, and thank you for joining us. Good evening, guys, and not good evening.
Right.